Well, hello everybody. Ni hao, greetings from New Zealand. A challenge, I might say, for a remote connection. So hopefully it will last the session. I'm very pleased to be participating in this 17th conference. I'm just sorry I'm not there to renew acquaintances in Perth. I'm grateful to Renata and the Taiwan Responsible Care Association team for the opportunity to help understand the rejuvenation process that is underway with our much-loved responsible care initiative. Our absolutely unique voluntary industry chemical safety initiative that is very much underappreciated in some quarters. By way of introduction, I look after the International Council of Chemical Association capacity building activities, and the intention there is to firstly establish new responsible care host organisations throughout the world to increase the network of 65 associations currently doing good work. And secondly, to help local associations develop the range of products and services to help their members safely manage their chemical inventories. So to set the scene, I thought it might be useful just to highlight a couple of features of almost 40 years of responsible care. Some of you will be aware that responsible care was the industry's response to the catastrophe in Bhopal, where in 1984, more than 16,000 people died after a chemical release. At that time, the global leaders of our industry got together, agreed this could not possibly be allowed to happen again, and Responsible Care, a Canadian safety, health and environmental protection program implemented in leading Canadian companies such as Methanex, was adapted and adopted worldwide. We created the Responsible Care Charter, which in simple terms commits us to no harm to people or our environment resulting from our products and operations. And I'm pleased to say, in many respects, we are seriously implementing that particular commitment. We are helping local industries, wherever they may be, to meet and exceed their national safety, health, and environmental protection legislation and obligations. We are particularly interested in helping small to medium enterprises, because that is where many of the problems occur. They, in fact, are the beneficiary of a great deal of our responsible care activity, be it product stewardship on the part of the global multinational supplying the product, or indeed the local chemical association who recognises the need to provide products and services to help them better manage their chemical inventory. As you heard from our Responsible Care Leadership Group Chairman, Jeff Kovacs, earlier today, we have nearly 40 years demonstrating what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. It is therefore timely to periodically review this unique effective but voluntary initiative recognised by the United Nations Environment Programme as a role model for other industry sectors to emulate. An example of how responsible care is spreading out beyond the factory gate, we are working with the UN as we speak to help encourage the adoption of the globally harmonised system for classifying and labelling of chemicals. We'll hear more about that later. But right now, we have three speakers waiting to share their expertise with us. And if you are at all interested in adding value, you are going to receive excellent advice and guidance from our three presenters. We have Giulia from the European Chemical Industry Association, who together with a colleague, William, is leading the review and call it the refurbishment of the Responsible Care Initiative. Steve from BASF will share with us the challenges of data collection and presentation. And of course, we then have Paul, be no stranger to you, who has the opportunity to explain how the Malaysian Chemical Association is going about enhancing its local program. So, a good introduction to the value-added aspect of responsible care. So without further ado, I'd like to just briefly introduce our first speaker. Giulia comes to us with considerable experience, nearly, 8 years in the Cefic role of Responsible Care Manager, jointly with William Garcia. She is truly challenged by this refurbishment program, which is amazingly complex. It's going to have to encompass major multinationals on one side, and of course the smallest of the SMEs at the other end of the spectrum. And it'll be interesting to see if we can enable one size basically to fit all. So we're looking forward to your presentation, Giulia. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks a lot, Barry, for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen. So now you should be able to see my presentation. Okay, so I'm going to speak about this process of rejuvenating responsible care in Europe. Barry has already made a very good introduction on responsible care and the origin of responsible care. So I would like just to add that responsible care arrived in Europe in 1989. So after almost 30 years from its start in Europe, Cefic in 2017 felt the need to, how we call it, to rejuvenate the program, so to give a new life to the program. In fact, during these 30 years, new standards appeared covering the areas of responsible care, new regulation at national European level, and also the interests of society shift from towards sustainability, corporate social responsibility. And that's why we started this process in 2017. This process in Cefic was started when Cefic employed me, so I went through all the processes in 2017. We have this rejuvenation in Europe has three core elements: the connection to standards, the development of maturity levels, and also a sort of practical support for associations and companies to implement responsible care. About the standards, basically we align with international standards and sustainability principles. As you can see here in this slide, we start from the Responsible Care Global Charter and its 6 main elements, and we connected to the standards that at the moment are covering the same areas, as you can see. So ISO 90,001, 50,001, 40,001 environmental management, 45,001 on occupational health and safety, 26,000 on social responsibility, also EMAS, that is a European scheme for environmental management. We also connected to RC 40,001 from the American Chemistry Council and also their management system RCMS. And for sustainability, we connected to the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and to give also European perspective to the European Sustainability Charter and Chemistry Can initiative. Second, the core element of the Rejuvenation in Europe, we created the maturity level. In fact, before, the companies were just signing the guiding principles at national level and joining the program. But then there was not a path to help them really growing over time. And we know that the mindset of responsible care is a continuous improvement over time. So we created 4 levels of maturity, so 4 levels of implementation of responsible care, going from a basic level of companies that has just signed and entered the program to a level, an advanced level, a level of excellence, the 4th level, where there are companies that they are front runners, they can share the good practices with others. Basically, we don't only tell the companies where they stand in one of these maturity level, but we really help them go into the following level of maturity, giving them tailor-made tips and also provide them with good practices. Third element of the Rejuvenation is to develop a kind of practical support for companies and associations. So we made a new management framework that is a kind of guidebook introducing responsible care and explaining what is it, the main actors, the maturity level, how to implement it according to the 6 elements of the Responsible Care Global Charter. And we also developed a self-assessment web tool that was launched in 2020. So basically, it's a questionnaire, a multiple choice questionnaire for companies to self-assess the level of maturity or responsible care. It was developed in 2018 before in Excel format. Then, of course, the Excel format has some limits, especially concerning the collection of the data. So then we move in 2020 into a digital format, a web tool launched in November. This tool is closed to the general public, so only open to the companies and associations that are using it. But if you go to if you're curious, you go to the link. You can see there is a there is a tutorial, so you can see how the tool is looking inside. Now I will launch the teaser video to tell you a bit about the tool.
Our chemical industry is fundamental to almost every other industry and a vital part of our everyday lives. We are committed to sustainability while continuously improving the quality of our health and the environment. Responsible care is the foundation for our journey, providing the tools that support safe chemicals management. Its new self-assessment web tool guides the management of your health, safety, security, and environmental operations. It helps beginners get started and enables frontrunners to set the highest global expectations. Whether you are a small or medium-sized enterprise or a multinational corporation, whether you are managing one site or multiple sites, the tool provides simple guidance for complex matters. Tailor-made tips help you to identify improvement actions, and good practices shared by the network will help you continue improving. Its benchmarking feature enables you to compare your performance with industry peers and assess performance between sites. It is also harmonized with international standards and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for coherence and efficiency. The platform ensures your data is protected and is accessible in 18 languages. The more data in the tool, the more effective we are as a community. So start your responsible care journey today. Together, we can contribute towards a world that is cleaner, healthier, and more sustainable.
Okay. This was the end of the video. I come back to the presentation. So, as the video was underlining, basically one important feature from the tool is benchmarking. So the tool allows companies to benchmark against peers. And is one of the feature that companies really like it. We started collecting data last year, so we have already the first we have already analyzed the data from 2021. The 2022 reporting will end now at the end of December, so I cannot show you the data yet, but I can show you for last year. You can see that we had last year 833 sites using the tool. If we consider both producer and distributors, in fact, the tool is used also by European distributors, chemical company. And out of these 833, 655 are manufacturing sites. They are across 26 countries, Europe, out of the 30 that are implementing responsible care. And we have also 36 headquarters that joined the tool. There is, in fact, a possibility for multinational companies or companies that have, anyway, multiple sites, even inside one country, to create an headquarter, and from the headquarter, check the performance of his own site and also make a corporate assessment for his own site. Here I show you also some data to compare the number of users from 2021 and this year, 2022. So you see that it increased. Here I only show data for manufacturers. If I add also distributors, we are around 1,000 users. And I show you also the size of the companies that are at the moment using the tool. You saw, of course, that it's predominant the large, but we have still not many small companies using it. But anyway, the number is increasing. And we hope to have more small and medium enterprises with time. Here you can see the general outcome from last year of the reporting. The question is based on the 6 elements of the global chart that you see here on this spider diagram. So you can see that the general maturity level at European level was 2.92. So almost the companies are almost on the 3rd level of maturity. And if we go and look at the level of the chapter, so the 6 elements of the global chart, you see that the companies are doing best in corporate leadership culture and safeguarding people and the environment, so HIC, while there is still a bit need for improvement for here I don't know why you cannot visualize it, but anyway, there was the strengthening chemical management systems on product stewardship. So in product stewardship area, there is some room for improvement, and especially in the sustainability area, there is some room for improvement. We also identify the top 10 area for improvements and the best 10 performances. As I told you, we are doing best in corporate leadership culture Europe HIC, and here you can see the sub-chapters, so the topic in which we are doing best. And for the area of improvement, I told you especially in product sustainability. And if we go into detail, you can see that for sustainability, the areas for improvement is land use and biodiversity, diversity, water use, sustainable portfolio, materiality assessments, while for product stewardship is prioritization of products, risk characterization, and product information. As it was shown by the video, the teaser video, the question was also linked to the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, and basically this is the results at European level. So we decided that the companies should get to the level of maturity 3 to be able to communicate externally with stakeholders that they are fulfilling the Sustainable Development Goals. And at the moment, apart from the 4th Sustainable Development Goal on quality education, for the others, we don't reach this target of the 3rd level of maturity. maturity. We are at European level on average on the second level. So there is still also here room for improvement. We had the good feedback from the users of the tool in 2021. They say that was easy to use with a good technical performance. The question, the reply were in general clear. The translation functionality satisfactory. In fact, the tool, the main language is in English, but was translated into 17 European languages, because of course it's important that the company can do in their own local language. And the user also suggested some improvements on the functionalities that were already integrated in the tool. So we have already, the companies this year, they have already improved experience based on the feedback of last year. And they also suggested to improve, to clarify a couple of questions. We already made this change that will be online for the 2023 assessment. As I told you, the tool, of course, is a tool powerful for companies to identify where they stand and how they can improve over time, and also the possibility to benchmark, but also powerful for national association and the Cefic at European level, because we can identify what are the areas for improvement for the industry, and we can work on them. At Cefic level, we already start working on them. As I told you, we have several sustainability areas where we need to improve. We already organized 2 workshops on biodiversity water management, where 2 of the topic that we need to tackle. And for product stewardship, product prioritization, risk characterization, product information, we develop a guidance with our product stewardship department that is now uploaded in the library of good practices of the tool. In fact, in the tool, there is a library where the companies, they can go and they can choose the good practice that they need to improve. Of course, as I told you, now we have a majority of large companies using the tool, and we want more and more small and medium enterprises joining. So we are working closely with the National Association to have more companies, small and medium enterprises on board. So this is all from my side. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Giulia. Succinct and clear as always. Appreciate it. Right, our next speaker, and I just remind you to put any questions into the chat box and we'll get to those in due course. But our next speaker, I'm pleased to introduce the head of EHS Data Management and Reporting for BASF, 10 years as a site quality manager, and 5 years gathering the data, and another 5 years teaching us how to interpret it, perhaps. Steve has the envious task of not only creating the data, but presenting it to a waiting world in a form which we can easily assimilate and understand. So good luck with that, Steve.
Thank you, Barry. So also from my side, welcome everyone. I hope you can see my screen. I see also over the video that is working. So yes, I have the pleasant honor to give you the sneak peek of actually the evolution of what Giulia just presented to you. So within the RCLG, I chair the working group on the self-assessment web tool, where we basically aim at expanding the Rejuvenation project and tool that Cefic started to the whole world. So without further ado, let's go quickly through the presentation. As I mentioned, it's a sneak peek, but it's so allow me to also first look a bit to the past and then also look ahead to where we are heading, and when you can see some real action, or we will request potential action from participants. So as Giulia already mentioned, we started within Cefic, where I also reside in the Responsible Care Issue team for BASF. with the Responsible Care Rejuvenation project, which basically defines, as Giulia showed, the RC management framework and created a self-assessment tool, which was launched end 2019, early 2020. And like with any good practice, was also presented in the Responsible Care Leadership Group, at which point on ICCA level, we also took the decision to expand this with another project for the whole world to increase maturity in responsible care. So, of course, as you see the dates, we started early 2020 in a time where basically COVID was not known, nowhere heard whatsoever. So during the first 2 years, dealing, of course, first and foremost with the pandemic, we also try to find our way in translating the Cefic management framework, which was designed for the European sphere. So with the harmonized European legislation we have, to a more international context, to also have it more opened for developing countries, but also still retain the interests of the developed countries worldwide. So where are we at this moment? Well, basically we finished what we call the co-design of the initial version. So our developer is now working tediously to really get everything we desire implemented. And then looking forward, Q2 next year, we will issue a call for participants to already partake in the beta testing of the international tool. So for any country who listened to the explanation to Giulia and then had the direct question, can I enter, can I also use the tool, and so on? Well, as it's for the European sphere, I will answer for Giulia with a no, but please be patient. In 3 to 6 months, you will get the potential to already partake in the testing of the web tool on a ICCA level, which is more suitable also for any international local context there might be. What is our final ambition with this tool? Well, that is ICCM 5. As you might know, ICCM 5 has now been put on the schedule again, with a target date of end of Q3 next year. And that is also where we as ICCA want to publicly launch this web tool, again, reaffirming the commitment of the chemical industry for responsible care, and also showing that this story has not come to an end yet. We can still grow in maturity, we can still improve, we can still fulfill the commitment, although the commitment has been out there for already a very long time. And then early 2024, our ambition is to have the first official launch of the web tool for the whole wide world over the national associations to all of the companies, multinational, medium companies, but also small companies. So as I mentioned, what were the steps that we're taking? Well, first and foremost, we adapted the responsible care management framework of Cefic to a ICCA responsible care guidebook. And basically that's our basis on which we now develop the web tool further. This is the framework of Cefic adapted to the international context. So whereas Cefic has, for each of their questions, a system of 4 answers, predefined answers, which can be selected to rate the maturity, we have moved to 6 answers to make it more open, especially for both lesser developed countries as developed countries, as I mentioned before. Of course, as you can imagine, when Cefic developed the tool, they had, let's take the example of process safety, they had language that referred to Seveso, for example. Seveso is the European harmonized legislation on the prevention of large chemical incidents. Well, this legislation is, of course, not known outside of Europe. So in that case, you really need to adapt that language of that question so everyone has a better sense what is looked at, what are we requesting, or what is the measurement scale. So in the end, we came up with this international guidebook, which includes more than 100 questions. As such, also 600 or more as 600 potential answers to give to the respective questions. Also combined with a useful improvement section that helps the companies to really improve their maturity. And maybe that's also a very good point to reiterate. We really talk about maturity. And the tool that we are developing, the tool of Cefic, is not meant as a compliance tool. It's meant as a maturity tool in the sense that we want to grow maturity with all of our members. Whether you're a very small company, a medium company, and even a large company as BASF, even for us, and I also hear that from peers like Exxon, you still can improve. There are still things where you're not at the full extent of what can be done. And so it's really also for a company as BASF, a helpful tool for self-reflection, to not become complacent, to really say, okay, what is the next step that we as a company can take and where can we really improve? So what are we going to produce in the end? It's a worldwide cloud-based system. So it's not a single server somewhere in Europe or somewhere in the US with a lot of latency, connection problems, and so on. No, we really go for a state-of-the-art technical system that makes it very easy to connect to the system if you want to participate. As Giulia mentioned before, a big help or interesting feature of the tool at Cefic is first the benchmarking capability that it has. Well, we've also kept that strong feature and also allowed for a worldwide benchmarking for each and every participant as they want to. Worldwide benchmarking, what do we mean? Well, it's first and foremost comparing to peers, but secondly, it's also comparing to ISO standards. How far are you away from an ISO standard without focusing on, again, the compliancy part, but really helping companies to say, okay, do you want to reach ISO 9001 or 40001? Well, what are the steps in your current system that you still need to take to go to that level? Also, like with Cefic, we also linked with the sustainable development goals. And apart from Cefic, we will also introduce a new feature that we now quickly have to check. There we have it. That we will introduce a verification report. What is that? Well, that's basically a report any participant can run out of the system for their assessment and hand this to an independent verification office or verification body, and really have a official verification of the maturity scale of themselves. And as such, also use this verification and certificates that will be generated and then be stamped by an independent company as a marketing tool, a notification to customers. Well, this is our management system for health and safety, environment, and also much more. To really also to customers provide a solution for one of, I would say, as a company, the bigger problems that we face with responsible care is how to also connect with the outside world, outside of the chemical industry, and make them see the value of responsible care as an overarching management system within a company. Also, additional feature here is also dealing, also with already a existing Cefic system. We really went for a very flexible system, which means that the Cefic users are not forced to enter the data twice. We will have a system that connects with regional or country pre-systems if the national association would like that, which allows local users in that national association, because the steering and the connection to the tool will always come over the national association, to over a system that they have in their country, connect directly to the tool, and when they allow for transfer, they can also do the whole international verification within the tool. So why should you participate in the end? Because, as I mentioned, it's not a compliance tool. You will not be forced. It's a clear statement. Barry also reiterated it. Responsible care is a voluntary initiative. So that also means that the concept in which, or the mindset in which we developed this tool was a voluntary basis, which makes we have to offer you a meaningful contribution for the efforts when participating in the tool. So first and foremost, as I mentioned before, is when you do the web tool, you have your assessment of your maturity. And next to that, you will at first have then already the improvement tips to go to the next level of maturity. Completely voluntary. But if you see meaningful topics, you can step by step also improve your maturity. We will allow the possibility to have responsible care verified, certified for any company for commercial reasons. You will get a certificate out of the tool that over an independent verifier will generate a certificate which you can also hand into potential customers to really show them, well, this is our management system. We know that in the world today, there is a lot of focus on certification, and that is where responsible care at this moment is also lagging behind. Well, this is the first time we will have a possibility to really have a certificate based on your maturity for responsible care. And also there, as mentioned before, we have the benchmarking capability in the tool, not only for yourself to see where am I compared to peers, but also in the second level for ICCA. Your contribution helps ICCA and the Responsible Care Leadership Group to also focus their efforts in capacity building in the areas where we see the most gaps or the largest gaps, and really directs the, as always, limited funds to really those areas where we see this is where we really have to focus for the next years to develop responsible care further, or to help countries, SMEs, whomsoever, in a direction. And lastly, and that will not be the feature that will be available at the very first time, but as Giulia mentioned, over the self-assessments within Cefic, we also see where we have the highlights, where there are players who really have a very high score, and those can be contacted to also ask them, well, can you provide us good practices that you use, which we can, after anonymization, provide to everyone to also help them in improving their maturity on that aspect. So with that, I believe I come to my last page. As I mentioned before, at this moment, the tool is not yet available, but please be patient, because if you really want to do this self-assessment already, there is the possibility of an early involvement May, June 2023, where we will do the beta testing, and we are looking at participants from all over the world. With the beta testing, you will have access to all of the functionalities. You will have already the access to everything which I mentioned before over benchmarking and so on. Of course, the population on which we can do benchmarking is then still fairly limited. How will this work? Well, in January, February, we will reach out to all of the national associations, member of ICCA, and really ask them to call within their countries to get participants who will then be contacted further by us for the respective efforts, use cases which we would like to test. For those who are interested and are already willing to participate, just for your information, you can estimate a time effort of about 1 day for the whole testing. And when the call from your national association goes out, just react and you will be on board. For all others who are still interested but at this moment are unable to commit to participating in a test, well, as of 2024, as I mentioned, we will launch officially. And I would welcome all of you. We have the experience within BASF that although we thought that we were already at a very high standard, which we of course are, we still found some things where we said, well, this could be a very good next step for us also as BASF. So even for the more mature countries or more mature companies, the large multinationals, even for those, there is a lot to gain. But, and that's what Barry also mentioned, this tool is also there for the SME to really help all of them to grow to a better level or a next level within responsible care. With that, that's the end of my contribution. I would thank you all and hope to see you all in the beta testing for developing the tool further.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Appreciate your very interesting presentation. I just don't relish the thought of how we are going to provide progressively robust information about an increasingly diverse industry sector. So the sooner we get started, the sooner we'll get there. Just taking my own association as an example, 10 years ago, our membership was 100% the manufacturers and importers of chemicals. Today, 40% of my members fit that category. The remainder are major users of chemicals, as diverse as hospitals, food processing companies, government environmental agencies, the armed forces. How we ever hope to be able to present a comprehensive chemical management confirmation to a skeptical audience remains to be seen. So I look forward to this progress you're making. So thank you again. Right, our next speaker is Paul Ellis. Paul is no stranger to many of us. Paul has, in fact, a 30-odd year career in responsible care and forcing people to wake up to the fact that it's the best thing that could ever happen to their little industry. I think you began, if I remember correctly, harassing companies in southern Malaysia, Johor, one of which was Rejuvenation, who happened to be an offshoot of Nuplex. Fred Holland was our foundation chairman, so it's a small world. Today, of course, you are a corporate Mongol in your own right. And again, we look very much forward to learning at your knee and your extensive responsible care journeys. So welcome, and take it from here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Barry. Yes, I hear what you say. I can't honestly sort of say that I am a huge expert at everything. I've listened a lot today from loads of people, and there are some sort of key things that come up. One of the key things is called SMEs, right? And I would call Malaysia an SME country, right? We're not huge, we're not totally developed. We are developing. We've come a long way, but we've still got a long way to go. And let me just go straight into my presentation, and I will want to ask a lot of questions from this presentation now. I have to share screen. The technology is always good. I share this screen. The title, Responsible Care Rejuvenation. It was very interesting to hear that others seem to have the same problems and ideas that we have. We need to go forward. We need to bring on board a lot more people. In Malaysia, we have incidents like the rest of the world. And when these incidents occur, the majority of them have come from smaller, medium-sized enterprises or small companies that aren't necessarily, as you said so rightly, Barry, production companies. They're using chemicals, they're trading chemicals, they're moving chemicals around. And these are the people that we really do need to get hold of and sort out. So let me move on to, basically, we have visions and missions. We have responsible care in Malaysia started in 1994. We have lots of activities, and we have an ongoing pathway forward. CICM was established in 1978. We have over 100 members, comprising manufacturers, traders, distributors, and companies providing services. And I can see that in the future, our members are going to be more and more on people who are using chemicals the same as you, Barry, because they actually understand some of the problems, but they don't know how to deal with them. And we've found, I don't know about anybody else, but we've found here in Malaysia that actually interest in becoming part of CICM and also part of the responsible care program has increased due to COVID. Because I think during COVID, people couldn't get information, didn't know what to do, didn't know how to do it safely, and suddenly there was a big hole and they needed help. And we're finding, and we're trying to move on that group. Our vision and mission, the Malaysian Association championing the sustainable growth for the chemical industry, and to be recognised body for the promotion of a sustainable chemical industry in Malaysia. We have a wonderful country here. It's very green, and yes, it's just about to rain outside. So things grow here. We have huge diversity, biodiversity, and we're worried about keeping it. We have problems with our past in terms of forests and cutting down forests, and we're attempting to challenge those and sort it out. One plus is that we must remember that the whole of Europe was a forest 700, 1,000 years ago. And I doubt whether there's more than 10% of Europe is now a forest. So it would be lovely to see Europe actually start planting trees in their own country, in their own areas, to come back up to the 50% of forestation that we have in the East, and especially in Malaysia. A challenge, and I can say that because I'm European. Our role is to promote cooperation, and promote development and interest, and to be the voice of the Malaysian chemical industry. One of the great things about being in a smaller country is that the government tend to come to you and ask for help. We are actually contacted by the government, I would think on a daily basis, but maybe not quite as often as that, on many, many subjects, but especially to do with health, safety, environment, sustainability, etc. And we are doing a lot with the government in working with them on how to improve things. Right, we're the main steward in Malaysia for the Responsible Care Program, and we started in April 1994, where the official launch took place. And I was actually at that meeting in 1994, so right at the beginning of Responsible Care. At the time of launch, we had 33 chemical companies, mainly MNCs, but now, same as what you were saying, Barry, we have a lot more of other service companies and people who are using chemicals. Our timeline, basically I would call it our journey. Our journey is continuing, and it is part of the journey and will continue in the future. We've done a lot of things. We still do a lot of things. I think what must be remembered in a small and developing country, we don't have resource. We've got money. It's not money, it's people. We only have one full-time person working for the Chemical Industries Council of Malaysia, right? We have some other supporting agencies who help us out, but we only have a small amount of resource. So we do look towards America, to Europe, because and the ICCA, we need to have support from you. And this, what you're doing, Stephen, is magnificent, because this is just the sort of thing that we're looking for. And I put my hand up and say, I'll be there. I'll be on the beta. CICM will be there. I've already had talks with my people, right, on WhatsApp, and they said, we want to be there quickly and start using it. Okay, so we want to really push forward. We have 150 chemical companies. Our structure, we have a responsible care committee supported by a technical committee and security code task force at the moment. We have task force that we set up. These task force and committees are all run by the members, all right? We have our one guy who comes in and the secretarial who come in and help, but basically all the work is done by the members. We don't have a workforce who can do it for us, so we're doing it all ourselves. One of the great things is that we are actually recognised by government agencies such as DOSH and DOE, and we have close contact with them, and they like us. One of the things that we're trying to do is to get the government to say to companies that they feel have problems, to say, you should go and be part of CICM Responsible Care Program, right? DOSH and DOE go out there and start seeing companies, and they come back with their own internal reports, and they think, how can somebody help these guys? And we're saying, we will take on that role, and we will collaborate with people to do that. And this is one of the key things that we are doing, right? And we are part of the ICCA and APRCC and the ACIC organisations. But it requires a lot of personal work by the members on the committees. We have safety seminars and conferences. We're also got a very keen member who's involved in transportation. And he's basically set up a safety road award scheme for our transporters, because we feel that transporting of chemicals is not an easy task and can cause real problems. So we have meetings and consultations, of course, and we also involve the local communities. We have a responsible care run. Everybody organises these, but we have for the chemical industry. It helps us to get our messages across to the local community. And if you're interested, come over. It'll be, I think the next one's is next year I can't remember now, in June or time. Just drop me a note and I'll send you an invite and you can come and run. Okay, it's all good for health. Join me in the 5-kilometer walk. Right, we do lots of activities. We work with the social security system here in Malaysia, and they give us money for developing short programs, usually YouTube sort of type programs for working safely with chemicals and working at heights, driving, etc., etc. And we do that in conjunction with the government. So we actually provide a service to the government for moving forward. Right, let me just move on. Okay, there we go. 90% of the chemical companies in Malaysia are SMEs. Guess where our problem is? SMEs. So basically, we need to do things there. We do work with SMEs in collaboration with Malaysian Productivity Corporation. Safety has been identified as one of the contributing factors to productivity improvement. We have nationwide roadshows involving presenters from both government and industry to create awareness to SMEs to do with chemical risk, as well as legislation and also penalties. And they have been increased very recently. Basically the same as in Europe and the US, it goes up to directors. So if you're a director of a chemical company, you can be taken to court and thrown in jail if you are seen to not leading the company correctly. On Responsible Care Initiative, we're promoting the continuous improvement of HSC performance and implementation experiences. So these are some of the activities. Let me move on. We also do things we've set up a guideline for responsible care for SMEs. All right. We know that SMEs don't have resource and don't have all the backup that the big boys do. So we actually got out a program as a next step to provide individual help to SMEs to put in place an HSE management system based on the RC codes and the relevant government regulations. Main target to achieve 35% or greater improvement of implementation levels. We did a pilot program and that has worked extremely well. And so the supporting tool is the publication of guidelines on responsible care management system, implementation for enterprises in 2022, focus on EHS and EP codes. We find that if we focus on certain codes for the SMEs, some of them are looking at distribution codes if they're in the transportation business, and some of them are looking at other things. But basically, get them on the route, get them on the plan to move forward. Okay, and this is what we are actually doing in Malaysia. We have other activities. This was brought up with by our friends from Dow, and basically to do with shoes. Everybody has shoes. Everybody, and especially in this country, we have many pairs of shoes: shoes for walking in the rain, shoes for walking in the house, shoes for everywhere, and they wear out. And what to do with them? And it was sort of put up as an idea. Well, what are we going to do with all these shoes? Like millions. 33 million pairs of shoe waste would contaminate the environment. If everyone in Malaysia throws away a pair of shoes or slippers every year, 33 million, goodness me. So we've got a real problem there. So we've found a way of dealing with it, and we're now actually making it work. And we've got a big multinational who are working with our local companies to turn shoes and slippers into useful material that can be recycled. You know, it's something small, but it's something that we grabbed hold of under the RCP heading, right? And this is, to me, this is a real part of what RCP is all about. I'm really pleased that we have supported this. and are carrying on to support this. Right, so move on. So let's look quickly at ongoing and path forward. We are continued efforts to highlight importance of value of responsible care and good chemical management at talks and conferences. Membership category broadened to include chemical users. Mandatory signing up as RC signatory and vice versa. So CICM membership means you're signing up for responsible care. I think somebody said that, will it become certification? And the answer is, in Malaysia, yes, right? If you want to become a member of the Chemical Industries Council of Malaysia, then you need to sign up in responsible care. And we're looking at how to do that, how to audit it. We are reviewing and updating codes of practice. In Malaysia, we set up 6 codes of practice and then a 7th being security. So we have codes of practice, which are, again, tools which help people to say, right, well, I want to know how to do it. I want to encourage our people to go forward in this way. And we review and update the terms and conditions for the use of the RC logo. And currently we have peer verification via awards. This is a very interesting thing that we do in Malaysia. We have our Responsible Care Awards. And they're not just for the MNCs, but they're also for the smaller boys as well. And it means that you don't have to be an MNC to get an award. And that's great. My company is just a small company with 120 people. So we come under the sort of small medium enterprise, and we've won prizes. My team love it. Fantastic. What a motivator. And I would suggest to any organization around the world, have awards, have something to celebrate, and use that as a way forward. Right, let me just go on. Right, as we said, inclusion of special awards for SMEs in the RC awards and collaboration. And we've got our RCMS guidelines for SMEs. To leverage on tools and pilot programs, and that's why I'm so interested about the ICCA web tool. I'll put it down, it looks really good. Right, and not only will it help in this certification with customers, it will also help with the banks. I don't know what's happening in the rest of the world. In Malaysia, our banks are becoming more and more concerned about ESG, environment, sustainability, and governance. And this, to me, responsible care needs to sort of cover that, and does to the majority of the way, but I think I heard somebody say that it needs to change a bit, and I do agree with that. But therefore, it will help you get money from, or borrow money from banks, and therefore expand, and this is most important. We continue and strengthen industry and government partnership to drive greater HSES performance by industry. And a government recognition program. Another one, the youngsters, the kids, our future management, our future people who are going to be responsible for our chemicals. They need to be exposed to responsible care at university, if not before. But we are really focusing on universities to get them to use responsible care program, not only in their own operation, but also in teaching in engineering syllabuses, so that we can actually help and get the youngsters understanding about health and safety and responsible care before they come and work for us. And we are also engaging with other stakeholders, especially the banks. We are advising the banks on ESG without it being, and I think somebody said it, greenwashing. Right, we mustn't do that. We've got to be part of it's got to be real. I mean, next one. And my last slide, with 54 seconds to go. Thank you very much, Terima kasih. Okay, thank you.
Terima kasih, we have so much in common, it's almost frightening. But I pick up the point on SMEs. I don't believe we should leave behind SMEs when we're talking about chemical safety. They are the source of most of the incidents. And in our case, like you, we only have 3-4 global exporters. We have 3 major chemical exports, and we have food. And of those exports, food is the most chemical orientated, believe it or not, particularly thanks to COVID. And our interpretation of an SME is not so much the size, physical size, but the fact that it does not have the in-house safety, health, and environmental expertise that it needs to either comply in the first instance or go beyond compliance. So thank you very much for a most entertaining and illuminating presentation, Paul. Now, I see we have several questions in the chat box, so let's have a look and see what we have. One for Steve. Beta testing the self-assessment tool. Are the trade associations going to sign up? Is that the intention, or are you going to try it on companies first? You've mentioned that you're targeting national associations, but what about companies?
Barry, I think that Stephen had to leave, so I think that is not anymore. But if you want, I'm in the group. I can.
Please.
Okay. Yes, so basically the tool will be used both by companies, of course, and also national association, because national association has the possibility to see the aggregate data of their companies. So for sure in the testing will be involved both of them. I don't know at which point companies or national association, if they're involved both, but for sure both has to test. At least for Europe we did like this because you have different profile in the tool, so you have to be sure that the functionality of all the users work.
Okay. Another question, if I may, before we solicit them from the floor. Is this going to be in 2 parts, one for resident companies and another part for those where they are just a branch office of a company in another country who are determined not to support the local chemical association? Therefore, their intelligence gathering is going to be limited. 2 examples I can think of: the relationship between Canada and the US, and Australia and New Zealand. Head office in one country doesn't encourage the subsidiary in the other country to do things like contributing data on performance. Is that something you're grappling with?
Well, I can tell you what is the experience for Europe.
Yes.
I mean,
Europe.
Europe, basically the use of the tool is only limited to responsible care companies. So it means that if you have, for example, multinational that have sites in different countries, but some site had joined responsible care in a country, but not in another, so they can only the one that has joined responsible care at local level in the country can use the tool. In the system, there is the possibility to create an headquarter, so it means that a multinational can then check all sites, and they can also benchmark against each other, the sites that are in different countries. The only rule that we have for Europe, I don't know if it will be for ICCA as well, is that you must be a responsible care company to join, and we know that signing the global charter is not enough. I mean, at CEO level, we know that you have as a site to join locally at national level. So if they don't do it, then they cannot use the tool. I have to be honest that it was also a push to join responsible care in the last 2 years since we used the tool. We had 100 more European companies joining because they want to use the tool. So we had sites in countries that officially were not responsible care that they want to join as well. So it was also an extra push to be part of the program.
Thank you.
I think we would in Malaysia. we would like to ensure that CICM actually sort of make sure we know what's happening with the chemical industry, because I think, as you said, Barry, a lot of our MNCs, they're sort of talking back to the head office. We get them on board, actually. Even we have a very large petrochemical company here called Petronas. We have members who are not just Petronas. They are the subsidiaries of Petronas downstream who are our members. And so we actually get over that and say, guys, if you want to become part of CICM, you've got to sign up for responsible care, and it's you signing up, not your head office back in wherever, right? So we made sure, and we would like to sort of, with this web tool, we would like to use that to get people on board. One of the great problems we have is we don't have any resource. We don't have a staff of 5 or 10 or 20 people. We have one plus some secretarial. So overall, we've got, I think, 2 people working for us, right? If we get more people involved, we can then, it spreads out the load to everybody else, so that we can then push forward responsible care and make it a better organisation within Malaysia.
Absolutely. And are you finding that you are getting unconditional and enthusiastic support from major local companies as much as multinationals?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yes, definitely. The big boys in Malaysia, some of them have come from multinationals. The multinationals then sold off their assets into Malaysia, and they're Malaysian companies now. So that's how it works here. But we have a booming chemical industry here, and in Malaysia, I must say that the country as a whole sees the chemical industry as very strategic as a country, and therefore are working very closely with CICM on developing it. And one of the key things is health, safety, environment, and sustainability. It really is. And the other set of people are the bankers. Bankers are coming to us saying, what's all this ESG, and we need to know more about it, and can you help us, right? Because in the past, this is one of the things that SMEs kept on saying to us, oh, we can't become part of it, and we can't afford it. It's going to cost us money to do responsible care. And our answer is, yeah, it costs you a lot more money when you have an accident or an incident, number one. And then number 2 is, one of the key things to get them on board, what every SME requires, he requires a bank account, right? And almost all of them will require to borrow money, right? If the banks say, oh, you're into chemicals, where's your responsible care program certificate? Otherwise, we can't talk to you, right? If we can get that, they'll come running, because they'll have to do it. And once they're on board, and that's one of the ways that we've gone, and we've actually started to make that happen here in Malaysia.
No, all excellent points, Steve. And I just inject a note of caution from our perspective, is that it's easy to get caught up in the sustainability argument at the expense of the pure safe chemical management aspect of responsible care. For example, are you able to reach out to the oil and gas industry and the mining industry?
Oh, well, in our particular case, yes, because I'm in the mining industry as well.
Exactly.
And, we actually, I don't know how to do it, but there are organisations in the world who are, like Responsible Care, right, that are operating in the mining industry. They are there.
Yep.
And the key thing is, should we get closer together? Should we try and put everything suits one way of doing things? Not yet, all right? But there are different things involved with mining.
Just a thought for you, there's something we've had some success with is offering a free walk and talk of a site focused purely on chemicals, aka hazardous substances, and the mining industry with its fuels and explosives, and oil and gas with its fuels and explosives are prime candidates, and they grab at it, especially if it's free.
Yeah.
All right, Giulia, do you, addressing the question of identity for responsible care, some of us have a view that the awareness of the responsible care initiative is waning somewhat. If you look at the websites of leading multinational chemical suppliers, you often have to look very hard to see the responsible care logo or even reference to responsible care. Do you think your program will actually help us raise the profile of responsible care inside as well as outside the industry?
Well, yes, the one of the aim of our Rejuvenation project was also this, that we really want to be able to use the program externally with our stakeholder. So with the idea is that in time we can draw trends also from the data that we collect in the responsible care, European Responsible Care Self-Assessment web tool to communicate this also externally. And for example, I can say that in France now there is a pilot project with French Chemie, in which they are also making an audit. So they also develop their own modified logo. So there is a responsible care, and a bit further they put another kind of stamp to see that it's certified. So the pilot project will be starting soon. We really hope that they can lead it and they can push the rest of Europe in going that direction. Because of course, if we can move from a self-assessment to a system in which there is an audit, this is more powerful.
Just picking up on Paul's earlier comment about sustainability and the interest of the financial industry, are you finding that in Europe, that the insurance companies and the bankers are paying attention to a responsible care company's performance through the initiative?
In Italy, for example, yes. I know that in Italy they pay less the insurance, the responsible care companies. So there is an experience in one country. We would like that would be possible to have it also in all the others. But yeah, in Italy they succeeded on that. But in Italy, for example, they don't have. There is the possibility also to do an audit as well. So I think that this make it more powerful.
I apologise if I missed it, but you commented in your presentation there were 2 or 3 sustainable goals which are not yet fully addressed or reported upon. Is that correct? The UN sustainability goals?
Actually, out of the 17 UN sustainability goals, we connected the question, I think, to about 10. Actually, only one we, at European level, we are reaching it at the moment. The rest, we are still below. We consider this target to reach it, the third level of maturity, and we are below. We are on average on the second. So basically, yeah, there is work to do.
Do you see in time, though, making that up so that we can present a comprehensive approach to the 17 goals? Because this is where our critics are going to focus. Anyone that isn't addressed is going to be a target for us.
Yes.
Well, in that case, let me ask another couple of questions, if I may, to wind up to this very interesting session. We require our members to sign the Responsible Care Charter. But relatively speaking, there are a large number of associations where that is not the case, and also that the proportion of members of some of these host associations is relatively low when it comes to responsible care. The exception, I'm happy to point out, is China, where by government decree, they are telling companies they must be participating in the admittedly government oversight of responsible care. But there are still many countries where chemical associations are not requiring active participation. Do we have a collective strategy for dealing with that, do you think, Giulia?
Well, I can tell you what is the situation in Europe. Basically, in Europe, we have some countries in which it's if you are basically the membership is connected with being part of responsible care. So then, if you are a member, you are also part of responsible care. Other one in which you can choose, member can choose to be responsible care or not. Europe, basically, they sign guiding principles that they are based. We already made the work a few years ago to be sure that the guiding principles they are aligned with the 6 principles of the Global Charter. But then, of course, they can have some addition because of differences that you have at local level. We have sometimes the fact that they sign the guiding principle, but they don't sign the Responsible Care Global Charter. So it happens that sometimes you have, if you look at the list of signatory, at least for European level, sometimes you have less companies that are responsible care because not always they sign the Global Charter, the CEO. But just because we have the guiding principles, so you have a different document. So I'm following well up with the association to have also the Global Charter signed, to have a list of signatory that really correspond to the reality in Europe, but still I know that is a bit underestimated. Then, I mean, I don't know if it's a good strategy, the fact that if you are a member, you must be responsible care, because still, I mean, I'm not sure that this is a real push then for them really committing it. I mean, because then it's not a matter only of signing it, but it's a matter of doing it. So in my point of view, it's good that if you are a member, you can decide to be responsible care or not, because for me, it's not a matter of numbers. It's a matter that if you decide, then you commit. But it's just my personal point of view.
No, absolutely. But I recall in Croatia, when we established the association with the chamber, it was already a legal requirement for businesses to belong to the chamber. Okay. So at that point, you had what you might call a captive audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd just like to make a comment.
Please.
It wasn't that long ago where we didn't need to sign responsible care to be a member of CICM. It was a growth thing. It was, to be honest, it was selling it. It was all about saying to our members, look, responsible care is one of our pillars. It's there. It is part. If you want to become part of the chemical industry, responsible care is part of that. And therefore selling that, and I think we've sold it to an extent now that we can say, hey, look, guys, you want to become a member, you need to sign up for being part of the pillar, one of the pillars of CICM, and becoming part of that. Is it voluntary? Yes, ish. Right? We're saying if you want to be, you don't have to become a member of CICM. You know, you don't have to. We're saying part of CICM, becoming a member, is responsible care, and therefore we're making it part of that. However, we've still got problem areas, and I don't think they're ever going to go away completely, and we've got to keep people on board, and they've got to be, how do you rejuvenate it? How do you keep it running and keep it new in people's minds? So that we don't have our incidents, which are awfully similar to things that keep on happening around the world, right?
And will continue to do so. I mean, one of the things that we are doing from a, if you like, community support approach, as well as chemical safety, is helping to upskill emergency responders. Because you'll be well aware in the last 5 years, there's been 3 significant chemical incidents where the major casualties were the emergency responders not knowing what they were walking into.
Yeah.
And that's an issue that's common right throughout the world.
Yeah.
The other interesting aspect of what you've just said about participating is, of course, it always helps if there's an enormous discount available to members versus non-member products and services.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And but, you know, we always say in CICM, we need to be useful to our members.
Absolutely. Add value is our favourite phrase.
Absolutely, yeah. Add value. And we work hard at trying to do that. And sometimes we succeed marvellously well, and sometimes we don't. But you just got to keep on doing it. I think that one of the things that we did do was to have these responsible care awards, because I don't care whether you're a small company or a large company, if the boss says, hey, look, I think we should go for this, we're pretty good at this area, and they can win. Even if they're a small company, they can win. And they go up there and they get issued with an award from a senior government person or a senior industry person for the evening, and they have a dinner out in KL or wherever it is. Fantastic. They love it, you know, and +1 for responsible care.
Absolutely so. We've been sponsoring Lankan Responsible Care Association, and they've gone from 1 or 2 awards a year now to more than 15 individual awards for one good reason or another. So it's certainly a high-profile exercise that costs very little and helps spread the gospel, as we say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, reluctantly, we'll have to wind things up here. I love these conversations. But, Giulia, would you like to have a closing comment?
I just see in the chat that there is written one more question from the audience.
Okay. I can't see the chat for some reason. Yep.
Okay. But maybe they can tell us which is the question.
Please, go for it. I gather it's something like, can you do responsible care and sustainability? Is that the issue?
Yeah, I think I've got the chat. It says, I want to make a comment. Yeah. Safety and sustainability actually goes hand in hand in most cases. We can pursue both agendas complementarily and concurrently. That was the statement. I think it's a statement rather than a question.
You have any comment on that, Giulia?
I may say that in Europe, we say that responsible care is our foundation for responsibility. So we say that it's the basis actually for sustainability. So we don't see them disconnected.
Good. Paul?
Don't see a problem. It must go together. Yeah. It's all part. Sustainability. If you're not looking after health and safety, you're not sustainable, period. Bang.
I do think, though, historically, a few years ago, we perhaps erred in encouraging companies to think they had to choose between the then responsible care endeavours and branching out into sustainability as a separate exercise championed by the then leading multinationals. I think it's taken us a while to recover from that to the point where now we support sustainability through the Responsible Care Initiative. It's the way we express it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to close, thank you very much indeed to our presentators and to our audience, of course. I just hope that you have something to take away from today's session. I certainly do. I think we've been very well served by the experience and the expert comments made by Giulia, Steve, and not forgetting, of course, is it Steve or Stephen?
Stephen.
I apologise then. Please pass on my apology.
Okay, no worries.
The New Zealand way to shorten everybody's name.
Yeah.
And not forgetting Paul, of course, which, as I said, is no stranger to responsible care, or New Zealand for that matter. So without further ado, thank you very much indeed, TRCA, for the opportunity, and we look forward to the next. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Keep safe.
Bye.
Yep.
Yeah.